We're now going to look at 2BD3 to evaluate 3 handling and restraint techniques and the equipment used. We have to consider animal safety, welfare and stress reduction. So in general, usually when handling small mammals, such as sort of rabbits and rats, guinea pigs, etc., it's going to vary slightly with each species. However, the general principles are all the same. When you're handling small mammals, you've got to be firm. The firmer you are, it means that the less stress they're under, the more secure they are, but you don't want to be too firm, such as to injure them. It'll also reduce the risk of bites and scratches to the handler as well, if you handle them in the correct way, and especially if you keep your hands away from their jaws and their teeth. So underneath the jaw is a good way to handle something like a rodent or a hamster or a rat that may tend to bite you. It's important to make yourself aware, them aware of you before you attempt to pick them up, especially if something's asleep, so that's going to reduce the stress on the animal and reduce the chance of them biting you. So let's have a look at the first method that I'm going to talk about, which is the Scruff Method. So the Scruff Method is used for small mammals such as gerbils and rodents such as rats and mice and maybe hamsters as well. So they're going to try and move away from you quickly. So you're going to try and remove as much of the furniture inside as you can, so any wheels and covers and other furnishing inside the cage, etc., to be able to get in and handle the animal quickly and to prevent it from hiding behind the furniture. So some rodents such as gerbils you don't handle by the tail because that can become detached and tear off. Cupped within 1 or 2 hands and lifted by the Scruff Method. So the Scruff Method involves this part here, so lifting up by the scruff of the neck, as we can see here. It's also good for with you injecting an animal, so if you've got to give it medication of some kind, then you lift it by the scruff of the neck, and that restrains it and keeps it safe and secure, and also gives a flap of skin for you to be able to inject into. It also prevents you from being scratched or bitten, because its jaws are therefore away from you, away from where you're holding it. So the advantages are that it can be used to handle for brief periods of time small animals very quickly, securely. Keeping your hands away from their mouth as well, because the scruff of the neck is the point of restraint, so it's not going to bite you, and very good, as I say, for administering medicines. Also good for moving them from one location to another. So as said, restraint is by using the scruff on the fold of skin just behind the neck to try and restrain them just in front of the shoulders. So if you grasp the scruff of the skin by the thumb and forefinger and keep a grip behind as well, so the back part of your hand then towards the back of the animal, then that's the best way to carry out the Scruff Method. It's good for restraining an animal and getting hold of an animal and moving it in an emergency situation. So it never ever fails really to be able to grab it by the scruff of the neck. It can be used for animals up to the size of guinea pigs and anything with vulnerable tails such as gerbils as well, that you wouldn't want to handle on the body too much or around near the tail parts in case they become detached. And the other good advantage is it can be combined with other methods. So once you've actually got it by the scruff of the neck, unless you're actually going to administer medicines into it, such as this one here, where you might continue to hold it by the scruff of the neck, you actually then combine it with other methods, such as lifting it up and supporting the lower body underneath. So you might use then a second hand to then lift it up. But the great advantage is that it's going to keep its mouth away from your hand and prevent you from it from biting you. The disadvantage is that you can only really use it on small animals, and for short periods of time. So you don't want to hold it for that long, but the advantage is that it never ever fails really. So for just to be able to restrain it for a brief period of time before you can hold it in another manner is superb really. Fur around the neck, rodents, hamsters, maybe rabbits as well. Maybe you might want to use the claw method instead for larger rabbits, because it might be quite painful for them. So I think probably up to the size of hamsters, rats, maybe a guinea pig as well, but possibly not a rabbit, unless you just want to briefly restrain it and then use a different method to then lift it up. Not too firm a grip, otherwise the animal can become injured, but a good method for restraining it and preventing anxiety in the animal, good for its welfare. It's not as secure as other forms of restraint, such as the claw method, and more suitable for quick administration of medicine, and as I say, quick movement of small animals. Let's have a look at the claw method then. The claw method involves wrapping your hand around the back of the animal. So rather than picking it up from the scruff of the neck, wrapping it round the back. Again, you can use it for small animals such as hamsters and rats. So anything slightly larger benefits from the claw method rather than the scruff method. Bats and rats uncommon, but occasionally they can bite you, and so the good thing is that if you wrap your hand around the back of the neck there rather than holding the scruff, it can't turn round, and you've got the head securely, so that around the shoulder area as well, so around the whole of the head and the shoulder area and round its back, it's very, very secure and can't turn round then and bite you. So for slightly larger rodents, this is better. It can be combined with the scruff method, so you can grasp it by the scruff at the back of the neck and then quickly use the claw method to secure it a little bit more firmly. And as I say, good for animals that tend to bite, and slightly larger animals such as guinea pigs and larger rabbits might be better handled in this way, so that you don't hurt the animal by grabbing the scruff of the neck if it's slightly heavier, slightly larger. You can put your thumb around underneath as well, so once you've got the claw method on, you can put your thumb underneath its jaw, and then that means that it's not too tight, but it will prevent the animal from biting you. You don't want to hold it too tightly such that you prevent it from respiration or breathing. Good as well for injecting animals underneath. So if you've held it via the claw method, then you can turn it upside down and inject underneath into the abdomen or the stomach area if that's where the medicine needs to be administered or injected into. Handling, good for advantages, handling animals for a longer period of time. It's more secure and not painful for the animals if you're going to hold them for a longer period of time. And as I say, for larger animals and for those that tend to bite, you can restrain them a lot better by using the claw method. So scruff at first, followed by the claw method, and good for administering injections underneath because you can use the claw method to turn it upside down. Quick and easy method for restraining animals in emergencies, and quick to be able to get them via the claw method, to quickly grasp them and to move them out of the accommodation in an emergency. Prevents animals from scratching and biting, we've said it already, and the claws in the mouth away from the point of restraint, which is around the shoulders, so a claw around the shoulders. Also useful for birds as well, so you can wrap your hand around the back of the bird and round its neck. It prevents the bird from biting you, but also keeps the wings in place as well. So a bird's wings are particularly vulnerable to breakage. So if you wrap your hand around the claw and around the back of the bird, then it folds the wings in so that they are not vulnerable to being broken. And as we said before, combined with other methods such as the claw method and the next one that we'll come to, which is lower body method for lifting larger animals. The disadvantages of the claw method are that only used to handle and restrain small animals, because you've got to wrap your hand around the body. So anything slightly larger, even larger rabbits, will have to be combined with the next method, the body hug method. Stressful for some animals. Lizards, bearded dragon, as the hand is introduced from above, and they can get quite anxious by doing that. So therefore you've got to quickly use the claw method, but then use the body method to lift them up from the lower part of the body. The other disadvantage is that you can be too firm with it and prevent it from respiring or breathing if you're not careful. And whilst your hand is around the body, it's still possible that the animal could reach down and bite your hand wrapped around the body if it's not in the correct position. And then finally, number 3 is the upper and lower body method. So you've got your one hand around the shoulders, so in a claw method, but then you've lifted the lower body as well. Especially useful for larger animals, guinea pigs, rabbits, etc., where you've got to support in 2 places. Otherwise you're going to cause some pain, and you want them, especially for heavy animals, to be held underneath and supported underneath. The handler's thumb is placed around the jaw, and then the way you do it is you put your other hand underneath its hindquarters, underneath his back, and lift it up, and then you can hug it to your body in some way to be able to support the weight of the heavier animal. In the case of a rabbit, rabbits get stressed very easily, and so by putting them into a safe and secure body hug method, where they're next to your body, will keep them calm and less anxious. So you can use the scruff method followed by the claw method, but then quickly use the body hug method to try and prevent anxiety in something like a rabbit. You can also tuck its head under your arm as well, to make sure that the animal then feels supported and safe. Slightly differently then, just to go on to sheep, so for larger animals, I suppose this counts as a body hug method because you're restraining it in 2 places. First of all, you use gates and panels and set up a pen to try and catch the sheep. Much easier to catch a sheep in a pen because you'll put them under less stress, and also if you can move them into a corner of the pen and corner them into a section so that they don't move quickly, hurt themselves, injure themselves, and try and escape in the process, or injure you. Once you've got them in the pen, you move them into a corner, cup your hand underneath the jaw of the sheep, so similar really to the claw method, but then you quickly grab the bony part of the jaw, so underneath the jaw, and point the sheep's nose upwards to try and stop it going forward. If you keep the head of the sheep up, you'll be able to maintain and control it, and it won't try to escape. Alternatively, if you can't do that, you can also reach for its hind leg or the back of the sheep, and then grasp around the head area as soon as you can. So this is I suppose like the body hug method, where you're using your body 2 points of restraint around the head and around the rear part of the animal to have 2 points of contact and make sure that it's safe and secure. Once you've caught the sheep, you can press it against a wall if you want to, and so use your leg then to try and limit its movement. And you can also put a halter on it, so you can put a form of a lead around the sheep, and that might be something that you've done at Acorn Farm. And therefore, once you've got the sheep in the harness or the halter, same thing around its neck and around its body, then it's safe and secure, and therefore not going to be anxious, because you'll realize that it's safe and secure in that halter. If you want to trim the sheep's hoof or gain access to underneath it for whatever reason, maybe to administer some medicine, or even remove the fleece from a sheep, you'll probably want to put it on its rump. That's a process called tipping. So you turn it backwards and use one of your hands from its rear to push that underneath onto its rump, onto its rear side, onto the floor, and then continue to tip the head of the sheep upwards. and therefore it's not going to struggle then, easy to work with the rump, with the rear side of the sheep on the floor and its head upright.